Everybody always asks me what goes into my meat sauce, and I'm gonna show you so you can make it yourself. So we start with a pot, and you're gonna add about 3 or 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Use a good olive oil here. And then you grate a whole carrot. So you wanna grate it on a cheese grater and then dice a yellow onion. You're gonna put those in there together. I added a little bit of salt and pepper with it. And we're gonna saute these down for, I don't know, about 5 or 6 minutes till they get translucent. Then we're gonna add some minced garlic. So I'll be right back with you. All right, next up, we're gonna put in our 3 cloves of minced garlic. We're gonna simmer this down for a couple minutes. We don't wanna burn the garlic. Okay, now we're adding some ground beef. I like to kind of break it up a little bit with my hands before I put it in. We're on medium heat, by the way. This whole time we've been on medium heat. So there's about a half a pound of ground beef. Then we're gonna add about a half a pound of Italian sausage, ground Italian sausage. You can do hot or mild, whatever you like. And once again, I like to kind of break it up a little bit before it goes in, because I'm gonna break it up with my spoon here in a minute too. Okay, then we're gonna let that simmer and then get nice and brown. The key with ground meat is don't move it too much. Let it get a nice brown crust on it before you stir it. By the way, every cooking adventure starts with a glass of red wine. All right, so this is our first stir here. As you can see, I let the sausage and the ground beef just kind of cook. I hate stirring it too much at the beginning because I just don't like that real gray meat. And I don't know if you can see it on camera, but you can see a little bit of caramelization happening with the meat. To me, that's flavor. I like to break mine up pretty good. You can use a meat masher or however you do it. I use this. I just tend to use this wooden spoon type deal here. And I just kind of crush it up and keep cooking it. And by the way, the first time I probably cooked it for about 5 minutes on medium before I even stirred it. I broke it up with my hands when I put it in the pan, and about 5 minutes on medium before I stirred it. About another 2 minutes after I broke the meat up, we're gonna add a little bit of seasoning here. We're gonna do a little kosher salt. Probably about, you salt to taste. Probably about like a teaspoon there. A little bit of black pepper. I like the coarse ground black pepper. We're gonna probably do about a teaspoon or so of this as well. Whatever you like here, because we can always season later. And we're gonna do about a teaspoon of oregano. This is oregano. You could use the Italian seasoning too if you like. And then probably about a teaspoon of garlic powder. There we go. And we're gonna mix this up. And next we're gonna add the tomatoes. All right, we're gonna add about a tablespoon of tomato paste. This just gives a good volume. And buy the Italian made from Italian tomatoes for anything you do here. It's gonna taste so much better. This is a brand here you can get at the store. I like these little sort of, I call them toothpaste tubes, because you can save it. You don't have to open a can and waste half the can, so. I like to cook the rawness out of the tomato paste a little bit before you put anything else in. So I made a little well in the middle here where you can put the tomato paste right on the pan. Kind of give it a minute and let it cook a little bit of that rawness out, and then we'll stir it into the meat. Now we're going to stir this into the meat. You don't need to drain the fat at all. The fat to me is flavor. If you really are on some kind of special diet, you want to drain the fat, you can, but you don't. It goes really well in the sauce. And there's not a ton of it. I used 85-15 ground beef and Italian sausage, so not a crazy amount of fat, and that fat's gonna get good flavor into your sauce. Okay, next up we're gonna add the tomatoes. So these are the best tomatoes in my opinion. Don't make sauce without using the Cento tomatoes. They're San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy. I like to start with the peeled tomatoes, and you'll see I'll add a can of the crushed tomatoes too. I like to just hand crush them. You just grab these beautiful tomatoes out of here and keep them low because they squirt all over the place. Hand crush, just like that. Keep grabbing them. Make sure your hands are clean, of course. I've washed my hands in between takes here. You just crush them in and just keep going. Then we're gonna add the juice of this can once they're all crushed in here. And I'll show you in a moment. All right, I've crushed all the tomatoes in here. I'm gonna add the rest of that juice in there. And then I'm gonna go fill this can up about, I don't know, third or half a way up with water. About a third of the way with water here. We're gonna add that in there as well. Then we're gonna grab a can of the Cento crushed tomatoes. And these are all already kind of broken down, and you're just gonna pour that whole can in there. We're gonna go do the same thing. To get the rest of that out, we're gonna add about a third of the can here of water. We're gonna pour that in there as well. There you go. Now we're gonna let that simmer for a minute, and I'll be right back with you to add, actually, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna take about 5 basil leaves whole. You just pull them right off the basil plant and throw them in there. And then we're gonna stir that in, stir everything together. This gives nice flavor. If you don't like the basil later, they'll pretty much kind of shrivel up into the sauce and you can eat them later, but some people don't like that and you can pull them out later. You're using these for the flavor. Okay, next one's a little controversial. I like to add a little bit of the regular white sugar. About a heaping tablespoon goes in. Just takes a little bit of bite out of that acidity of the tomatoes. And then at this point, I'll add a little bit more pepper. I like to season as you go. Season each segment. Layers of flavor. And then a little bit more kosher salt. And I say kosher salt because that's my favorite to use. I don't know, it just has the best flavor. So I'm gonna put about another teaspoon of pepper and maybe another teaspoon of salt. And once, you know, like I said before, you can season it to your preference. We can always add some more later. We're gonna stir. We're gonna bring this up to like a nice simmer. And I like to let it simmer for at least an hour before you serve it. You know, just all the flavors come together really nice. But that's pretty much it. I mean, that's your sauce. After an hour of simmering, we'll be right back and I'll show you how that looks when it's done. And then you can put this on pasta. You can use it for chicken parm, whatever you like, lasagna. It's really simple to make homemade sauce. You don't have to buy the jar if you don't want. If you're willing to put a little bit of extra work in, you can have homemade sauce. Okay, so I like my sauce a little spicy, so I add a little crushed red pepper in mine. You don't have to do this, but I like to pour it in my hand so I get an idea. Maybe about that much. That adds plenty of spice into it. If you don't like it spicy, skip this step. But as you can see, we are simmering, and we're still on medium heat. Let's come up to a simmer. We're gonna stir that pepper in. Then what we're gonna do is turn our heat down to low, and we're gonna add a lid, crack it just a little bit so some of the evaporation can happen still. So we're gonna crack it at this point. Got it. All right, so we've reached about an hour of simmering here. And full disclosure, I added about a teaspoon more of salt and another tablespoon of sugar, of white sugar. It needed a little bit more sugar, but you can kind of season to taste yourself. And it's just delicious. You can see the consistency. You can see how much it's come down since we started, how much it's reduced. And this is about the thickness you want right here. And then when you make pasta, by the way, buy the Cecco pasta. This is the best pasta at the store. Buy this one. Don't buy the crummy store brand that's all yellowy inside. Buy this one. This is better than Barilla too. Buy this one. And Boil with a little salt water, and you can add a little bit of that pasta water once you start cooking the pasta to make your pasta. Add a little bit of pasta water in with the sauce. If you want, I can do one more segment of this video, which I think some people will, and show you how I mix the sauce with the pasta. I'll do that. All right, so when you're boiling your pasta, I like to get you can get a coffee mug or a measuring cup, reserve some of that water. I'll show you why later. Okay, so this is how I like to mix the pasta. We've drained it out. As you can see, we've got our strainer here. I like to get a couple spoonfuls. This is the pot that we actually boil the pasta in. A couple spoonfuls of sauce. Spread it around the bottom. Then this is a whole box, as you saw. Pour it in there. Our pan's still hot. There's no heat on right now. Then we take a couple more spoonfuls. Put it on top, and we stir. And what this does, this pasta is al dente, by the way, so you want to make sure to take it out maybe about a minute before it's ready, because it'll keep cooking when you do this process. And you stir this sauce in. As you can see, it's just kind of staining the pasta, and it soaks it right in. If your pasta's too overcooked, it won't soak the sauce in as much. Okay, and then next video, we'll show you how to plate it. Okay, so that pasta water that we saved, we're gonna add a little bit. You don't have to put the whole thing. Just a little bit in there. Maybe, I don't know, quarter cup. We're gonna stir that in. There's just something about that pasta water, it's gold. Let's kind of tie everything together. All right, so plating. You can get a little bit of your pasta here, however much you want. Then you're gonna go back into your sauce, and you're gonna put it right on top. This is how I like to do it. Whether it's the way to do it or not, this is what I like to do. Boom. So Costco sells this Pecorino Romano, which I like better than Parmesan. This is imported from Italy. This is the real stuff. You can tell by the rind. So this is a great place to get it. You can get it at grocery stores too, but this is good stuff. I've got a little bit left here of another one. I like to grate the pecorino right over, and I love this stuff. Don't buy that like Kraft stuff in the green can that's like sawdust. Grate your own cheese. There we go. We're ready.